Some people rock and some people roll. Some will make you giggle right down to your soul. She'll talk to the world and introduce them to you. And look at me now, I'm on Barbara and you. You gotta take a step inside the shoes of another. Get to know your neighbor, get to know one another. She'll talk to the world and introduce them to you. And look at me now, I'm on Barbara and you.
Good evening and welcome to the Barbara and You Show. I'm Barbara Foster, but I hope you already knew that. And before I introduce you to my first guest, I want to tell you who's going to join me at 7:30. Carolyn Reed and Brianna Kelly from Habitat for Humanity are going to be here to update us on what's going on with Habitat. And there's always wonderful things going on with Habitat. And as far as my first guest, I'm very, very excited to have him here. I've been wanted to interview Senator Dean Tran since before he was senator. And I'm so glad we could get together tonight. Thank you, Senator. I appreciate you being here, and congratulations to you.
Thank you very much for having me here tonight.
And it was so interesting because when I got a hold of you, we booked it for January 2nd, and then you realized that was Inauguration Day, so that wouldn't work. But I know how busy you must be, so I appreciate you giving us the time to do an interview tonight.
Absolutely.
And there's lots of things I want to learn about you, but first I want to just express my own opinion about some things about you. One of the things is, I cannot believe how young this man looks for having a 19-year-old daughter and 3 other children and a beautiful wife, of course. But I think of Senator Tran as a man of firsts. I've learned at our chamber meeting last week and through articles I've read that from the time of being a young refugee coming to this country, he's traveled and done many things to get him to this point of being a senator, and I want to know how and why, for one thing. But he was the first Vietnamese American legislator in Massachusetts. He's the first person of color to be elected to office in North Central Mass. He's been with the City Council for 12 years, am I correct?
Correct.
And he's the first Republican in a long time, I believe since 1991, to have a Senate seat in our Commonwealth. And may I call you Dean?
Sure.
Okay, Dean. There's just so much for your life, and you may feel like being on the City Council for so long and having the exposure of campaigning that people know a lot about you. Our show goes into Fitchburg, obviously, Leominster, Sterling, and Lancaster. And I think there's a few people out there that might like to get to know you a little better. So do you mind? Let's talk about Dean Tran, the little boy, and what you remember and how it all began.
Well, sure. Definitely I did a lot of door knocking during my campaign, so a lot of people throughout the district found out about my background, and that's why they showed up at the polls. I wasn't born here. I was born in Vietnam in 1975, and my parents were big business people back in the country. My dad served in the Army for a very, very long time, and of course after the war happened, they did everything they could with regards to their finance to put their family on a wooden boat and to seek freedom. And what happened was that the boat drifted and drifted and drifted for many days in the ocean, and we ended up in a refugee camp in Thailand, where we spent another 2 years there.
2 years in a refugee
Yes.
camp. And would you have been, how old at the time? One report said 2 years, and one
2
said
years old.
4. You
2
were
years
2
old.
years old at the time.
I was 4 years old when we
When you
emigrated to the United States.
Oh, okay, that's why I read 2 different things. And do you have conscious memories of, I would assume when you're 4 years old, you have conscious memories?
Somewhat, mostly through senses. You know, what's funny is that, interesting, I find, once in a while I can still smell the smell of the fumes from the wooden boat. Wow. And then other things such as, you know, I can still hear the sound from the septic trucks in the refugee camp, where they would come and suck out the sewage from the porta potties, things like that. I still remember through senses.
Really, very interesting. Your parents must have been brave, remarkable people.
Oh, they are wonderful people. And without them, my brothers and sisters and I wouldn't be here today.
So your mom and your dad are very proud of you, and are they role models? Have they been role models for you?
They have always been my role models. Unfortunately, my father's not with us anymore. He passed away 6 years ago, and I know that he would be very, very proud of me for being elected to the state senate.
And I didn't mention that you are also a graduate of Fitchburg High.
I am. I'm a very proud graduate of Fitchburg High.
And you're a shining example of what a good education people can get
Absolutely.
in our schools. I tell people that all the time. I have 5 kids that graduated from Fitchburg High, and they're all doing very well. But tell me then a little bit about the stages. The 2 years in the refugee camp, how does one get away from that, and how did that happen?
Well, with us, we had to wait and applied through the green card process. And the reason why we spent 2 years in the refugee camp was that we waited for the process to go through and get accepted. Once it was accepted by the United States Customs and going through the process, we were sponsored by an individual who lived in Clinton, Massachusetts. And he was a priest, Father Tony, we called him. And through the green card process, we were sponsored by him and emigrated to the United States and became residents of Clinton, Massachusetts in 1980.
Was your family one of many that he sponsored?
Actually, yes, he sponsored 2 families. He sponsored another family who are relatives of mine, my mother's sister, who is my aunt.
Now, was this by chance that he got your family?
I'm not sure.
How that
I think
came about?
I think it was probably by chance.
I like to think that there's a reason for things, and
Things happen for a reason.
Yeah, they happen for a reason, and that was literally a godsend for your family.
Absolutely.
And I am always envious of people who speak 2 languages, because I'm not smart enough to be able to do that, and too late to learn now. But did you just evolve into English because you lived here and you heard it, or how about the language?
No, when we moved here, we've always had the belief that in order to assimilate, become citizens of the United States, that we had to speak English and speak English well and acquire the right education. I do speak Vietnamese, but not that well. If I do speak Vietnamese, most people won't understand me because of a different dialect and things like that. But English has always been my first language.
Okay, so you're not a student of English as a second language, which of course...
We started off as English as a second language, and then of course it became my first after that.
And as a matter of fact, we're going to have the people from Literacy Volunteers. They're going to come on my show in a few weeks, and of course they do a lot of work with that. How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have 2 brothers and 3 sisters.
Wow.
Yeah, there's 6 of us.
That makes it even more impressive what your family did.
Growing up, we were called the Tran Bunch.
The Tran Bunch. I have a large family, and people say, oh, the Tan Harris are coming. All of them? Wow. And where do you fit in the birth order?
Second youngest.
Do you recall setting goals, or when it came to your mind that you could do whatever you set your sights on, you could accomplish?
Oh, absolutely. We live in a country where opportunity exists, and the sky is the limit. As long as you perform, as long as you put hard work into what you want to achieve, you can achieve it. And that's why people call it the American dream. If you want to achieve it, you can achieve it. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't.
Well, and you said your parents were very successful back in Vietnam and were business people, so did they instill this in you?
Oh, absolutely. Everything that I've learned throughout my life really came from my parents. Values, family values, how to treat people with respect, and hard work, all came from my parents.
Did you ever witness the sorrow that they must have felt to leave their homeland? That has to be a very difficult decision.
It was very difficult for them. They left the country, especially my dad, who served a very, very long time in the Southern Vietnamese Army. But they had to leave, of course, because we lost the war, and because my dad served a long time in the Southern Vietnamese Army. There were implications and ramifications for that. But they traveled back to the country a few times.
Oh, they have?
And they loved it. It's quite a change. The country has changed drastically from, many years ago, from a war-torn country to now a very commercialized, industrialized country.
Mm-hmm. And have you been back yourself?
No, not yet. Regrettably, the last time my parents went back, they asked me to travel with them. And because of my work schedule and family, I was unable to attend. I was unable to participate in that trip. Now my father is no longer with us, so it's something that I will always remember my life. Yeah. But hopefully one of these days, I'll be able to take my wife and my children back there and visit the country that I was born in. Mm-hmm.
But you'll have less time now that you're a senator than you had before. Now, when you talk about work, what other type of work have you done besides being a politician, if you will?
So I've been in the private sector ever since I graduated from college, and mostly in the technology field. And most recently, I've been a senior manager for a software company based out in Burlington, Massachusetts, managing hundreds of people, mostly personnel, projects, and products, generating hundreds of millions of dollars annually on 3 continents. So that was a great responsibility for me. I have left that behind. That was one of my promises that I made prior to running for state senate. I said I would resign from my position on the city council, as well as leaving the private sector to make this state senate position a full-time, and that's what I've done.
And that's very important. But doing 12 years on the city council, you were still doing that very responsible job at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. It's I've always treated my work, regardless if it's on the city council or in the private sector, as something that high priority on my list. When I'm committed to something, I have to perform and deliver. And that's what I've done on the city council as well as in the private sector. And on the side, of course, I also have a family to raise.
Yes. And I want to come back to your family because I do have a few questions about your family. But tell me when you first got the idea that you would like to be on city council, because you're a busy man, as you said. You had your full-time job, a very responsible job. You're raising a family. You've already proven you can do what you want to do. You're an achiever. But why put another thing on your back as far as going on to city council?
So after I graduated from college, I spent 2 years living and working in Waltham. And my wife and I decided to raise a family. And we decided where would be the best place to raise a family. And of course, I spent most of my life in Fitchburg, went through the school system and graduated from the schools. And I said to my wife, there's no better place to raise a family than the place where I grew up in. So we decided to move to Fitchburg. We bought a house when I was at the age of 21. And I looked around after leaving college, coming back. I saw very little change. I wanted to see more development in terms of residential, to help increase the residential tax base. And I wanted to see things change. I wanted to see more commercial coming into the city. I wanted to see more business development. And I told my wife, the only way that's going to happen is people get involved. And if I want to see things that I want to see change in the city, I need to get involved. And that's the reason why I got involved.
And involved you did. and stayed around for 12 years, and you would still be a city councilor if you hadn't decided, and if the position hadn't opened up for
Yes,
senator.
that's true.
Now, when you mentioned your family, I presume your wife was enthusiastic about you making this decision to run for Senate?
You know what? Even till today, I don't even know how my wife and my children feel because they are so supportive of everything that I choose to do, because they know that when I make a decision on what I want to do, I would put 100% of myself and dedicate myself to doing it and getting results. Whether it's a job in the private sector or it's a position in the public sector. So they're accustomed to me making those decisions. So when it comes to the results, I don't know if they're excited or not. It's a little strange.
Well, I mean, if you basically won something that you wanted to win,
Yeah.
so I'm sure they were happy for you. I was going to save this till the end of our interview, but I'm going to refer to it now because I was very impressed with one of the newspaper articles in the Sentinel that contained a quote from your 14-year-old daughter. And this is so impressive. The 14-year-old girl saying this about her dad. He really persevered because this was something he always dreamed about. Olivia, his daughter, who is a student at Fitchburg High, went on to say, "He is a role model for me because I know I can pursue my dreams if he could pursue his." And that, I compliment you for that, because she's obviously a bright girl, and a lot of dads would love to have their daughters say something like that about them.
Oh, my wife and I were very proud when we read that quote, because we knew our children were interviewed by several reporting agencies, but we didn't know what they said. And when we read that quote, we were very proud that she felt that way. And I was very, very proud that that she sees me as a role model, and that I'm an example that she can pursue her dream regardless of what field that she chooses.
And I have a feeling you got that from your parents too. They instilled that in you, that you can do whatever you want to do.
Absolutely. My dad, when he was alive, he always told his children that don't let any obstacles stand in your way. No wall is too high to climb. Good advice. And you mentioned the campaign and going door to door, and not only yourself but representatives that were working for you. One of your workers came to my door in Sterling, and some people think going door to door is an old-fashioned way of doing things. Obviously you thought it was a good idea. Well, it's always a good idea because it gives me an opportunity to listen, and a lot of people love that. They love politicians who would just stand there and listen to them, and I did that. It's not old-fashioned. It is something that people still want politicians to do. Nowadays, it's all about money. Politicians just use the money, do mailing or what have you, and then once they're elected, the residents don't see them anymore.
And another person that shares your philosophy and did the door-to-door thing is Lou Evangelitis, the sheriff, and when he was a state rep also. But the campaigning itself was so rigorous, and I always think, and I want to come back to the money thing too, because that's interesting, but I always think you have to feel bad for the loser, because they put as much effort into it. Now, maybe you don't agree on different things, but when you change your life so much to throw your hat in the ring, so to speak, and then you don't win.
It's very stressful. It's stressful
be.
Mentally on the person, the candidate, him or herself, and it's also very stressful on the family. I never view anybody who lost as a loser, because when a person put him or herself before or participate in any election or be on the ballot, it's a tremendous effort. It's a commitment, and that's a winning effort. Anytime you have a lot of candidates running for a position, it's a win-win situation for the public.
That, yeah, very, very true. What have you learned since you won the election? Are there some surprises? Wow, I didn't know I was going to have to do this or whatever.
It's, first of all, it's easier than I thought because I'm coming from a private sector where I have very little sleep. I'm managing people and responsible for livelihoods on 3 continents and things like that. So coming to the State House where on certain days, I spent 4 days at the State House last week. And many of those days when I walk around, it seems as though I'm the only person in the building. So I'm not accustomed to that.
So when you talk about doing business on different continents, you had to meet other people's time zones.
Oh, absolutely.
So you didn't have time
so
to
if you
sleep.
ask my wife, she'll tell you he doesn't sleep because if there's a problem in Ukraine or a problem in China, I have to be in front of my computer on a conference call, and it may be 2 p.m. here, or it can be 12 p.m. midnight, because 12 p.m. midnight for us is daytime for them.
Right.
So I'm very accustomed to a fast pace, getting things done on a timely manner, deadline. Now I'm transitioning to a full-time position where those things are not there.
Because people work regular hours, fairly regular hours in comparison to what you were used to.
Well, I find that more than 60-something% of state legislators, this is a part-time for them.
And you knew from the beginning if you were going to take this job, it was going to be full-time for you.
It would be full-time for me because I can't, all the bills that I have to look through, the volume of emails that I receive on a daily basis, I actually need a staff to go through my emails because I can't possibly humanly go through all the emails on a daily basis. It has to be a full-time. And for me to really understand and grasp the protocols, the procedures, the parliamentary rules, understand the bills, making sure that the bills that I'll be submitting are up to par and on what the public want me to submit, it has to be a full-time job.
Mm-hmm. And you also, you mentioned you need a staff, and you do have 2 satellite offices as well as being in Boston. So have you accumulated a staff yet?
So right now I have a staff of 4.
Okay.
And I'm going to see how that works out. If I need to add more, I will add more. I have a full-time office right now in Boston, as well as I have a district office in Fitchburg, located at the Armory. And we're looking to open up a couple more satellite offices, one in Gardner, one in Leominster, and one in Clinton, because I like to come to the constituents and talk to them and hear about their concerns rather than having one office and say, hey, you come to me. That doesn't work with me.
Well, and you may have noticed a few people out this way don't like to go into Boston. Is that the biggest drawback, having to drive into Boston?
Oh, absolutely. For example, this morning, I left my home at 7:30, and I didn't get to Boston about 9:45.
Oh, my goodness.
So that's over, I think, about 2 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Which should take about a little over an hour if it weren't for all the traffic. Without getting too political, because I'm just not that kind of an interviewer, but I am interested in hearing your position on immigration, because you're a person who went by the rules. Your family came here, learned the language, walked the walk, lived the talk. What the current situation with immigration, do you mind sharing with us your feelings on that?
Not at all. Just keep in mind, I was born, my family came from a country that doesn't provide freedom. So when we emigrated to the United States, freedom was something that we cherish. My parents have always instilled in myself and my siblings that we respect the country that we're in. We respect the flag that we observe, and we respect the law. So the process that we followed was first the green card process in order to emigrate to the United States. And once we became residents of the United States, we followed the naturalization process to become citizens. You have to apply through that process, wait for the determination, and then take the exam. All of my siblings, I took the exams, and we passed. My father took the exam 4 times in order to become citizen, and my mom took it 5 times in order for her to become a citizen, and all of us became citizens by following the process. So, you know, there was a process for my family and I to become residents and then become citizens of the country, and that's what I believe in.
And you say we still have a good process and it should be followed.
We have a great process. We just have to promote the process. Our government just have to not only promote but enforce the process, making sure that we have good people who want to become citizens, give them the affordability and the path to become citizens.
Mm-hmm. Going back to your work on City Council, what are some of the things you feel that you were instrumental in enacting and that some of the things you're most proud of?
I think
obviously the city is proud of it or you wouldn't have won the election, but...
I would say 2 things. I've always put children ahead of everything when I was serving on the City Council. I made sure that every time there is a funding measure that came before the City Council to provide, whether it's protection to the children or school funding for the children, I've always voted in favor of that. The second would be constituent service. I've always responded to my emails, to my texts, to my phone calls personally, and try to do it on a timely manner because I'm in a service field as a public servant, and I take that very, very highly in terms of providing the service to the people, and those are the 2 things that I'm most proud of.
Mm-hmm. And the transition to being a senator and being in Boston, where the delegation out this way doesn't have the strongest voice in Boston. Do you feel that it's going to be an uphill battle? Do you think you'll have a lot of cooperation between parties and between areas? What are you thinking the future's going to be like?
I have a plan in place for that already because I know all the delegations to the west of 495 don't have that much clout. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've been doing in the past several weeks is that building friendships, relationships, and coalition with my colleagues to the west of 495, as well as my delegation and the delegations of my colleagues. Mm-hmm. So one of my goals is to create that coalition so that way we can work together and make sure that we bring more infrastructure projects and more funding to the west of 495 because, like I said at the chambers, we've been neglected for a long time. And as long as I'm in the State Senate, I'm going to do my best to make sure that we're not neglected any further.
I'm smiling because I can see some of them scratching their heads and saying, oh, here comes Tran again. What does he want now? But you're not, none of it frightens you, does it?
No.
I can see that.
I love working with people. I love building relationships. And the one thing that I love the most, getting results. And I've done that in the private sector. I've done that as a city council, and I'm looking forward to do that as a state senator.
Now, as you knocked on doors and went and talked to people, what were some of the stronger, what did you hear more often? Did you hear complaints or say, do this, do that?
You know, very interesting because towards the latter part of my campaigning and door knocking, I've done so much door knocking, it's just unbelievable. But towards the latter end, every time I come up to the door, they treated me as if I'm a celebrity. People running to the door and they're holding their head and like they couldn't believe I'm at the door. Oh my God, Mr. Tran, you're here at my door. Because of social media, it's incredible because the word spread that I'm door knocking, I'm all over the place. I actually door knock in all 11 communities in this district within 3 months of campaigning. So that was great reception that I received. The complaints that I mostly received, pretty much 2-folds. One was people are not happy with the politicians they have in Beacon Hill. Believe me, they're not happy. Another, taxes and fees. That's what they're not happy about as well.
And you will do what you can to change those,
Well,
or work in that direction.
I made my messages very clear through my robocalls, through my door knocking, through my literature, and I've never said anything that I would not be able to deliver. And if people go back and refresh some of the messages that I said to them, or through recording, through my mailing, they will see that from now till end of this year, there will be something done to each of those messages.
Do you remember how you felt on election night when you found out you won?
Relieved, very tired, and you know, can't wait to get some sleep.
And you weren't surprised?
I wasn't surprised. I was at the headquarters waiting for the numbers, the results to come in, and Councillor Shalafu Zephyr gave me a call, and she congratulated me, and very graciously, and I thank her for her service in Leominster as well as for her candidacy, and then we just took the victory from there. I wasn't surprised because I did a lot of door knocking. I spoke to people on a personal basis. I listened to them, and I knew they would take those sentiments to the polls.
And you said your dad taught you hard work pays off.
He did,
and it
did.
Well, thank you so much. The time has flown by, but I'm so glad you were able to join us this evening. And we congratulate you and wish you continued success in all of your endeavors.
Thank you very much.
And don't go away. I'm going to be right back with my guests from Habitat for Humanity.
Hello and welcome to FATV, Fitchburg Access Television. Each week we take pride in providing some of the best public access television programs in New England. From FATV live sporting events, city meetings, and school functions, to weekly shows such as Barbara and You, Inside and Discussing Fitchburg, Sports Weekly, Weekly Wellness, and Our City. Our dedicated staff of industry professionals and hard-working volunteers is here each week working behind the scenes, making it all happen. Besides on air, our programming is also shown live online, where you can see our shows in beautiful high definition. You can also search through our archive of past shows and watch anytime at your leisure. But did you know you can also be part of the action? Become a member of FATV, and you gain access to all the equipment, studio space, and classes that FATV has to offer. You can create your own show, volunteer for exciting live events in our studio, or all around the city in our high-quality mobile broadcast truck. The possibilities are endless. For a small fee, you can become an individual member. Or for a little more, you and a group of friends can become part of a rising trend in the future of television. From sports shows to news shows, civic events, and talk shows, you can be in the driver's seat by directing and even starring in your own production. Also, students are free. FATV staff can assist you by getting your new show up and running with professional industry standard equipment, TV studio time, and private editing suites. All you need are friends to help out, and before you know it, you will be on the air. So if you have a great idea for a TV show and want to share it with the world, stop by 175 Kimball Street, Fitchburg for a free tour of our facility. You can also contact us at 978-343-0834 or email us at info@fatv.org. Fitchburg Access Television, working together for a stronger community.
And welcome back, and I'm excited to be speaking with the ladies from Habitat for Humanity, and many of you know and will recognize Carolyn Reed, who's the executive director and has been on my program umpteen times by now. I think you were on even before you were the executive director.
Yeah, when I was on the board.
Right. And a board member is Brianna Kelly. Hi, Brianna.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. Nice to see you.
You as well.
And how long have you been on the board?
Very recently.
Oh,
Only been a few
okay.
months. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you helped select the board members, Carolyn, but you got a good one with
think
Brianna.
so, yeah.
I've known Brianna through real estate dealings because you're a
Yes.
mortgage person. So I know there's always a lot going on. So where are we going to start, Carolyn? What are we going to talk about first tonight?
Well, let's talk about our houses first. So we're building on Henry Street here in Fitchburg, and we're just finishing up the house for the Yang family. So it's a family of 9, and we should be done by the end of February. So we'll have a house dedication at the end of February. And we're very thankful Amica Insurance helped sponsor the house, and Workers Credit Union came out and helped. And then we have our partnership with Exit New Options and Exit Assurance Realty, and their ongoing donations really help us to keep building every month. So we're finishing up that house, which is very exciting. And then the next homes we'll be building are in Acton. We have a duplex that we're renovating. We have a property in Stowe we'll be building on, and then a wonderful gentleman from Leominster gifted us a piece of land at the end of 2017. So we'll be building a home in Leominster off Merriam Ave.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And when you said renovating one, was it Acton that you're renovating?
Yeah, in Acton, it's a really cool property. It's from 1910. It's a duplex, and it was originally built as factory worker housing. So it was historically affordable housing, and we'll be renovating it, and it will be affordable housing now forever.
But the renovating part is fairly new to Habitat. Didn't start out doing the renovations,
Right. It was mostly new builds, but here in New England, there's not a whole lot of land left, so we're doing some renovations. And then we also have the critical home repair program as well. And our goal with that program is to repair at least 12 homes a year, and just to maintain the affordable houses that are already in the region.
And Brianna, what made you accept when you were asked to be on the board?
You know, Habitat for Humanity does so much for our local community, and I think a lot of the things that do occur, you know, the critical home repair, and even you know, the house builds, people I don't think understand the amount of work that gets put into it, and how much we rely on our volunteers to be able to come and help us. And we really are very thankful for everything that they do. It's definitely a rewarding part to, you know, something to be a part of like that. So it was definitely, when I was approached, it was one of those, absolutely, that's what we're supposed to be doing, is giving back to our community.
And I'm glad you mentioned the volunteers, because basically that's who builds the houses.
Exactly. We have our full-time construction manager, Steve, and if you come as a group, you get this lovely shirt for helping to volunteer at the site.
You mentioned you were at the State House today. There was a Habitat event? Or?
Yeah, we had a hearing. So we have a bill, H2160, that we're hoping will pass. And if the bill does pass, it'll help us to build many more houses.
Okay, is it too complicated to explain?
It's an exemption from the SAFE Act. So the SAFE Act was designed to stop predatory lending. And our mortgages, the mortgages for our homes, are 0%. So we're looking for an exemption from that.
So when you go to important meetings in the State House, you usually wear a T-shirt?
Yeah, we're branded all over, yeah.
Hey, you gotta be proud, right?
That's right.
You gotta be proud
That's
of what you do. And you kind of started out as a board member, right?
Right.
And a volunteer.
I did, yes.
And,
Yep.
and probably never dreaming that someday you'd be the executive director.
Well, it was a nice dream to have.
That's right.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's Maggie used to say, the former executive director, you catch habititis.
Oh,
So the first
I like
time my
that.
youth group brought lunch to a site, and that was fun. And then I volunteered for Women Build, and that was such a fulfilling day to be at the end of the day and say, I built that wall and I put up that sheetrock. So that's how I got drawn in.
Do you ever have trouble finding it or having enough volunteers?
We do, because a lot of people, especially this time of year, think we're outside and they'd have to be building outside. But luckily on Henry Street, all of the work now is inside. So we're finishing up painting and installing trim and putting up the cabinets. So we hope people will come out and know that we're not going to have them on the roof when it's snowing. They'll be inside.
And your building manager doles out appropriate tasks to
He
people
does.
of what
He does.
people are capable of doing.
Exactly. We start the day with a safety talk, and then he talks to people about what they're comfortable doing. And he'll teach anyone any skill. You don't have to come in knowing how to do it, but he makes sure that people are comfortable doing the different tasks.
I had for the build for when the North Central real estate had brought the group that was there. I actually brought my 16-year-old son and my husband. My husband is extremely handy. My 16-year-old, not so much. So Steve was very patient, explained everything to the whole crew that was there, and it was very nice. I mean, it was rewarding to actually put your hands on something and be able to say, like she was saying, I built that, I did this. And my son actually, it was a really good experience for him. I mean, he's 16 and same thing, trying to instill those values, but the volunteers, yeah, having to be able to do the rest of the work inside is definitely something that would love to have people come down.
But it is a very good family project too.
Yes.
It creates a bond with the family, and you all feel good about what you've done.
Yes,
absolutely.
If somebody in our viewing audience is interested in volunteering, what do they do?
So we have a schedule up on our website, and our website is ncmhabitat.org. So they can go look at the schedule. We have hours to volunteer in the office, if that's what volunteers would like to do. You can volunteer on our build site, at a critical home repair site, or at our Restore in Leominster.
Yes, tell people about the Restore.
Oh, the Restore is such a fun place. So all kinds of families from the area donate goods, and it could be building materials, house materials, upholstered furniture, appliances to the Restore, and then anyone can go shop and buy these items at a discount. And all the money we raise helps us build houses.
And sometimes people with their own building projects will have something, they have too many of this or that.
Exactly.
And that's an ideal
Yeah, we get great
donation to make.
doors and windows and tiles.
And that's right here in Leominster.
It is, right on 117.
117, yes.
Yep.
And is there any fundraisers coming up?
We do. Right now we have an art auction going on. So this is a really cool one. It's called Home is Where the Art Is. So artists could sign up, and when they sign up, they would get a $25 gift certificate to the Restore to go buy anything and turn it into a piece of art. So it's all recycled art.
Oh.
And it's all being displayed right now at Six Bridges Gallery in Maynard, but you can see it online as well. So if you go to ncmhabitat.org, you can click on the button and go to the online auction piece of it and bid on any of the pieces. So we have really cool painted chairs and a shovel that was cut into these designs of a tree. It's just beautiful.
What an interesting idea. Where did that come from? The
Well, it
idea?
was a Habitat affiliate in the Midwest that I
Really?
borrowed it from. Yeah. They were happy to share.
Well, I was just going to say, imitations is a serious form of flattery or something like that.
Yeah, they sent me all the promotion materials. Yeah.
No, it's really a cool idea because you've got people in the Restore to begin with.
Right.
And then they do something creative and other people are going to buy that. And
It was really cool. And the Dr. Franklin Perkins School in Lancaster, they had a group of students who also created art. They went to the Restore and then created art, and that's on display too. So you can see the creativity of the younger generation as well.
And that's all at your website.
Yes. Yep.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Brianna, what have you learned? You knew pretty much about Habitat. You had worked on a site before you got on the board, right?
Yep.
And have you had any real challenges or surprises since you've been on the board?
I wouldn't say any challenges. I think it was more of understanding how many different activities that we are involved in. I think that I only knew about the Habitat builds. I didn't know about the, the critical home repairs or and a lot of the other functions that we put on to be able to have to raise funds. Like we also have like the dueling pianos that are coming up.
Yeah.
Oh, I went last year. That was
Isn't it
fabulous.
so much fun?
Absolutely fabulous. When is that going to be?
That's on April 6th.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
It's not that far
April
away.
6th at 7:30. I know it's coming right up.
Make a note of that.
That's a very fun one.
Was it the Bull Run last year?
This year it'll be at the Devons Common Center.
Okay.
Yep, right off Route 2.
Okay.
Yep, so we'll have that there. And then we have our spring breakfast on May 9th.
Yep.
And this year we're celebrating our 30th year building houses in the region.
Wow.
Isn't that incredible?
Now, Habitat is much older than that.
Right, 40 years.
40
yes.
40 years,
Yeah, so
but in this-
different affiliates started at different times.
Right.
Yeah.
Just briefly give the beginning. Maggie knew the whole story from
Right, 'cause she had
Millard
Fuller.
Millard
Yes,
Fuller.
yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted to mix that up. But just give people a little bit of the background and how and why it started.
Yeah, it is a great story.
It
so
is.
Millard was a very successful businessman, a lawyer, I believe. He'd made a lot of money and realized that it wasn't fulfilling to him. So he decided to give his money away, and he moved to Americus, Georgia, and was living on a communal farm, and they were working the farm. And he was seeing that it still wasn't equitable, even though they were on a communal farm, he could see in the community. And so he realized through a trip to Africa and then some building in the States that the way to break the cycle of poverty is to build homes and for everyone to have a decent place to live. And once you had that decent foundation and a home that was affordable to you, then you could move on and save for education, save for health care, save for other things, and focus on other areas of your life.
And he was able to find people to help him build these houses?
Oh, right from the very beginning. Yeah, he knew of the generosity of people to give of their time, to give of their funds, to help other people have what they had.
And it was very noble that Jimmy Carter helped him, but some people think Jimmy Carter started it.
Well, he's now become the face of Habitat.
Yeah. How do people find out, how do you get the people to have the homes? Where do they come from? How do they
That's a great question.
application?
Yeah, so as soon as we close on a property, so as soon as we close on the Acton property, we open an information session, a series of
And you're saying
information.
the house isn't built yet when you start the project?
Exactly.
Oh, right, okay.
And we do that on purpose, right?
Right.
Because folks can apply through the information sessions, and we'll have applications at the office as well. And then the families who would like a Habitat home have to meet 3 criteria. So they have to have an income that's 30 to 60% of area median income. They have to have a need for a house, so the house they're living in can't meet their needs, or the apartment, wherever they're living, and a willingness to partner. So the Habitat partner families will put in 200 to 350 hours helping to build their house.
And there's something really to be said for that, because they've really put their time and their energy and their hard work in there.
Yep.
And it's not a free gift.
It's not. There will be a mortgage. It'll be a 0 interest mortgage, so there's no interest. So the payments will stay the same, and it's structured so the family can afford it. So it's structured for the family income.
And you do keep saying family, so it's primarily families that get these homes.
Mostly families, but the house that we're planning in Stowe, it's going to be a duplex, and one of the homes is being built as an aging in place home. So it's a smaller house, a 2-bedroom. An aging in place. So we think for a couple who would like to stay in their home, so it'll be fully accessible in case the couple needs that at some point.
Oh, I haven't heard that term, aging in place. Very good. But and it's not always the traditional family, maybe a single parent, or I know you've had some families where there's been a handicapped child. And
right.
Who makes the decisions on who gets the house?
Well, it's through assessing the application. We have a family selection committee with some wonderful volunteers in the area from a number of banks, and we have some realtors, some folks from social service agencies, and it's our family selection committee that makes the decision and recommends it to the board of directors. And if we do end up with multiple families who qualify, then we will have a lottery for the house.
Okay, and if people don't win the lottery or they aren't selected the first time, they can apply for others?
Oh, absolutely. The Owan family that's in Ayr, this was their 2nd time applying for a house.
Brianna, you said there weren't necessarily any challenges that you found as a board member. What contributions do you feel that you can make as a board member that you couldn't make if you weren't on the board?
I do think that, you know, I do have a large financial background, meaning from the credit unions to Village Mortgage, where I am now. And I think it's being able to give some insight. We've had some questions about different types of loans and some different types of repayments and that piece of my background. But I also think maybe some insight as to, like, if we're trying to market for something or trying to draw in new people. We all have our own spheres of people that we interact with on a daily basis, or maybe not on a daily basis, but monthly or what have you. And I really feel like that's something that I can contribute as far as being able to do that. But also hard work and labor and participating. And I wasn't able to make it to the State House today, but those are the type of things that I would love to be, you know, involved in. So
if you had gone to the State House, you'd be wearing a T-shirt.
I sure would.
And you have some experience raising a large family.
Yes.
That comes in handy too, I'm sure.
It sure does.
Can you, I want you both to answer this and give it a little bit of thought, but I didn't warn you. Can you think of a particularly rewarding experience where you put a family in a home and it's like, oh, you just felt so good about being able to do that? I would see what you do as very rewarding. Although I'm not saying it isn't hard work and trying at times.
Oh, it's absolutely
but
rewarding.
you do
Yeah.
a lot of jobs are trying and hard work, and you don't see the reward.
Right, right.
So does something come to mind without naming names?
For a particular family, well, for me, what's rewarding every day, as I said before, is just seeing how generous everyone in this region is of giving their time, and then the credit unions, the banks giving funds to help us build and sponsoring our events and coming to help us. So I think for me, that's particularly rewarding. The families in AIR, so that was the first time that I was involved with the families from the beginning, from their very beginning application until they moved in. So that was really rewarding for me. John Dang, who was one of the heads of the family that moved into one of the homes there, was one of the lost boys of Sudan. So for me, it was just learning about his story and what he had gone through, and that he was this positive, hardworking, wonderful man who had every reason in the world to be bitter, but is happy and joyful and so happy to be moving into his own home and raising his family in that home, and for his wife Elizabeth to have a nice warm place to live. So I found that particularly rewarding.
He always had a smile.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
yes.
he
always had
has
a smile.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm thinking what you said about Millard Fuller, that if they have the home base, they have confidence they can do more with their
Right,
lives than
right.
maybe rather than the circumstances they may have been
Right.
living in before.
And that's what we're all about now. It's about building security and self-reliance through shelter.
And I've had the privilege of knowing a family who got a Habitat home, and how
A lovely family.
How
yes.
grateful, very grateful, every member of the family. Because when the family gets involved with the build, the children help too.
Right, right.
It's not
16
just-
and over, you can help on the build site, right.
Yeah. Brianna, can you think of any examples that maybe motivated you to want to do more, or?
I think it was, we had the breakfast, and they had introduced the family that was going to be moving into the house, and just the pride that they had and what they were contributing to and what they were a part of, it was a very rewarding thing to see, because they, it's like the same thing with most of the families that you've seen. They're so appreciative and happy, and they worked so hard to be able to get into their home, and it's their home. It's not just a house, you
Right.
know, and that means something. And having that family, nowadays I think there's so many things that we hear that might be negative, and whether it be on the news or Facebook or wherever, and these are the type of stories that we should be sharing.
Right. And this is kind of on the financial side, this question, but when we think of a duplex, we think of renters. But how does that work, that the two families own their half of the duplex?
Correct. So what would happen is there's usually, they have, depending on how they have it built, they usually would say, like, so it's pretty much split up right up the middle. So one side is owned by one owner, one side is owned by the other, and they may have the land split, they may have it as common. It depends on how they have it split up. But yeah, I mean, that's their ownership of their property.
And that's
So-
not that common, other than Habitat homes, I think.
Right, right, yeah.
So in our remaining minutes, we've got pretty much time. What do you want people to know? What do you need help with?
Well, we could use help finishing up the Henry Street home. So any groups who want to come out and install trim, install doors, put hardware up, and do that last punch list before the family moves in at the end of February could really use help there.
Groups or individuals?
Groups or individuals,
And we're
absolutely.
Inside, and we're inside, so don't
Yes,
let
yes.
us know.
But having said that, we also have 3 critical home repairs that are waiting. So if there are folks who are flexible, because as soon as we have a warm day, we're going to run right out. We have a ramp that we need to install very quickly for a gentleman. So if there are people who are more flexible and can just monitor our site, go to ncmhabitat.org and look at the schedule, and we'll be putting up some of the critical home repairs that we'll need help with rather quickly.
Well, what kind of a commitment do volunteers need to make?
So a build day is usually 8:30 to 4. And we can be flexible with that. Usually we'll take up to 8 people a day working on the site. And you can come for one day, you could come for half a day, you can come for multiple days. We do have some gentlemen who come every Thursday and help us every Thursday. So whatever commitment someone can make.
And I also echo what you say about the generous community we live in, because the donations certainly help, and the businesses who give you supplies as well as my financial help.
We have to raise the funds to do our building in our area, so each affiliate is independent, and it's just been amazing. Rollstone Bank and the Rollstone Foundation have really helped us to boost up our critical home repair program. Middlesex Bank has helped us on the Middlesex County side of our service area, so it just is amazing.
Well, we know we get in trouble if we start naming names because there's so many.
I know,
Yeah,
it is. We don't want to leave anyone out.
Right.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
you have had a lot of support
We
from
really have.
from the community, and I say that all the time. We live in a very generous community here. And how about the move, which was several years ago, that the main office was moved to Acton?
Right.
Has that been a benefit? Has that been a detriment in any way?
Well, the benefit is we had a very lovely benefactor who's allowing us to have office space for free.
Oh, well, that's
So that's great.
yeah, that's fabulous.
Yeah, it's on the far eastern side of our service area, so it does mean a little more travel to get to some of our builds and the critical home repairs. But it's nice to be
offices. That's don't get much better than that.
Exactly, and then we don't have to spend that money on operating costs. We can put it into building.
Yeah. Brianna, I haven't given you a chance to say a whole lot. What do you want to add before we let you go?
I think it's pretty much the same, thank you to the community. We're always looking for volunteers. If you have questions about how you can contribute, even if it's not it's a non-conventional way, we're always open to suggestions and help.
Absolutely.
And we appreciate how much people do for us and our community, and it's something that we'd love to be able to continue doing what we're doing. And those, the critical home repairs, which is just, I think that's such an important part of what we do, as well as the home builds. We'd love to be able to see how we can help the community and however we can give back.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's the next fundraiser that's coming up? Is it April?
So you can still buy the art online.
Oh, the art online.
And I didn't say that, until February 3rd.
Oh, okay. So get moving, folks.
The auction is from now until February 3rd. We'll have a closing reception.
Now, when you say auction, it's like a silent auction? You know what the previous bid was and you bid
Exactly.
more? Okay.
Exactly. And when you sign in, you can have it a pseudonym. You can have a nickname there, so you don't have to have everyone know who's bidding. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. And so it's online
So that's
now.
through February 3rd. We'll have a closing reception at Six Bridges Gallery on Main Street in Maynard on February 3rd from 4 to 7.
Okay.
And the bidding will end at 6. And then after that, it's Dueling Pianos on April 6th at 7:30, and we'll have tickets online for that next week.
Is the art reception open to anyone?
Oh, absolutely.
That wants to come?
Yep.
And but everything will be bought by that time.
Well, you can bid from 4 to 6, so that's when the final bids will be coming in.
That's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, won't it be fun?
Yeah, I want to come and see that. See if anybody gets mad.
Everyone will be on their phone putting their bids in.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I commend you both for the work that you're doing. You benefit a lot of people, and our community is very grateful for what you're doing. Thank you for sharing with me, and congratulations on being a new board member.
Thank you very much.
And of course, I thank you for watching. Hope you'll be with me again next week when my guests will be from Luck. Hillary Amedy and Lindy Hume and Joshua Reynolds are going to be here to tell us what's going on at Luck. And our dear friend, attorney Mark Bedanza, is going to be here to talk about, he's also an author, as I'm sure most of you know. And we're going to talk about his newest book, which is more about politics than sports. Usually he does sports books. I'll be here. It's my job, but I love it. And I hope you'll join me next week. This is Barbara Foster saying good night and God bless you.
Goodbye.